In our previous episode, after learning the harsh truth, our boy was left a bit lost, but thanks to his teacher's guidance, he quickly regained his footing. Afterward, the three of them passed on everything they had to our boy. As Lu Sheng absorbed the immense power flowing into him, he looked up, only to see the three of them already beginning to fade. Panicked, he called out to his teacher and senior brothers, but all he got in return were their gentle smiles. Then came old Yang's final voice, declaring that from here on, it was all up to him, and if fate allowed, they might meet again. Lu Sheng trembled slightly and shut his eyes tight, but tears kept streaming down his face. But there was no time for grief, and he had to focus on the power now surging through him. If he were to describe it, it felt like diving straight into a vast ocean of martial paths with endless insight and understanding pouring into him from every direction. 2 15th-level martial paths, 1 16th level, and several others of varying strength were all fusing within him. He remarked that his current martial foundation was already beyond measure, adding that it's impossible to even compare to what it once was, and he had never had this kind of feeling before. Clenching his fist, a shockwave burst out with a sonic boom. With his teacher and senior brother's legacy now in his hands, he believed he was finally qualified to chase after his own perfect martial path. He sat down cross-legged, knowing he still had to fully digest this before returning to the real world. Energy radiated from him in waves, and within the dream realm, a single star lit up and our boy once again entered seclusion. As the scene shifts back to our boy's home, we see chaos with buildings crumbling, flames rising, and the news playing non-stop in the background. His parents stared at the screen looking very concerned. His father remarked that aliens from a higher civilization had launched an invasion, and this time, it looked like the world really was falling apart. His wife doubted it, saying it looked too much like a movie. But the father shook his head, saying no way the national news station would joke about something like this. Just then, Lu Qing rushed in, saying the school had been cancelled, adding that the internet was flooded with videos, and with everyone talking about it, she believed it had to be real. She then showed a video where the giant martial avatar tore through groups of arriving martial artists like paper. No one seemed able to stop Ag, and Earth's strongest fighters didn't stand a chance, and one by one, they were obliterated in seconds. Meanwhile, Ag, with a sneer, declared that none of them would escape. The dad let out a long sigh, asserting that this was simply a level they couldn't compete with, and he was sad to see Earth's martial artists were no match. The mother, visibly worried, asked if the end of the world had truly arrived. He tried to comfort her, saying it was still far away from them. If the sky really fell, there were taller folks out there to hold it up. But what really made her worry was their son, and she reasoned that given our boy's current status, she feared he might have to go up against this alien threat himself. Her voice started to crack as tears welled up. The old man knew she was right, but still tried to offer some comfort. He told her not to overthink it, and further comforted her by saying surely if all the top fighters on Earth worked together, they could take down even an alien monster. For now, all they could do was put their faith in the country while staying calm, avoiding panic, and most importantly, not becoming a burden to their son. His father decided to head out and stock up on supplies, maybe even see if he could hire a renovation crew to turn the basement into a makeshift shelter. His wife, worried about him going alone, insisted they all go together. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to another villa, where Lin Zhengyue arrived at the gate and, after confirming her identity, the guards respectfully let her through. Inside, she was greeted with a nod from Tan Zhongyu before she asked about the current situation. Tan handed her a tablet showing a grim video recently received from a neighboring country. 3 9th-level martial saints had been defeated, and 58th-level great grandmasters had all been captured. A cold sweat slid down Tan Zhongyu's forehead as he remarked that they'd already lost 5 martial saints so far, including Cumberland. Lin Zhengyue's tone grew heavier, and she speculated that the alien must have access to a highly advanced detection device, allowing him to hunt elite martial artists with frightening precision. Then she looked around and said what they were all likely thinking, and everyone here must have felt the looming crisis. That's why, in such a critical moment, unity was their only hope. The others nodded in agreement, remarking that if they hadn't already shared that mindset, they wouldn't have shown up at all. One of them remarked that this alien invader, out of nowhere, was clearly 10th level, and further explained the dude had to be on the same level as the guide. He believed that if that was the case, then they were completely outmatched. Then someone asked, where was Lord Lu Sheng saying they needed him? This sentiment sparked murmurs all around, and Lin Zhengyue explained that Lu Sheng was currently in seclusion, aiming to break through to the 9th level. She further explained no one knew when he would come back and noted that disturbing him now could be disastrous, especially if he didn't yet know what was happening in the outside world. Someone then brought up contacting the guide for help, recalling that the communicator used to reach him was with Lu Sheng's wife. Right on cue, Snowy walked in from another room and announced that she had already sent out a distress signal 3 days ago. The guide had responded, saying he needed some time but would try his best to be here. Until then, they needed to stall for as long as they could. That update lifted their spirits a little, but many still felt that if Lu Sheng were here, they'd have a real shot at holding the line. The problem now was when he would come out of seclusion. However, even Snowy herself didn't have an answer. Before anyone could press further, Lin Zhengyue stepped forward and cut in, standing protectively in front of her, and reminding everyone that interrupting a martial artist mid-breakthrough was a massive taboo, adding that if they ruined Lu Sheng's progress, the consequences could be even worse. So this leaves them no choice but to hold on and stall for time, do whatever it took, until Lu Sheng returned. Elsewhere in space, a small ship darted forward at high speed. Lan Chen's friend contacted him, saying he was nearby and planned to accompany him to Earth. He worried that the space parties were very strong this time, and that Lan Chen going alone would be suicide. Lan Chen understood how serious things were, and told him that if he managed to rescue Lu Sheng successfully, he'd gift part of that favor to him. As the scene shifted back to Lu Sheng, he had now exited the dream realm, and behind him, a large purple figure slowly formed, solidified, and then changed color. Before long, it transformed again, this time turning jet black. What stunned him was that it wasn't just any manifestation. This was the black scythe crystal form, one that he noted was from the level 11 manifestation from the crystal meditation technique, a key piece in Old Duan's 15th level martial path. Exhaling slowly, he remarked on just how terrifying this leap was, and noted his psychic strength had jumped straight from 8th level to 11th level, but he still ended up hitting a bottleneck. He couldn't comprehend the remaining parts of the inheritance and figured it was likely because his current martial level was still too low, and perhaps his body needed to catch up. With psychic power upgraded, it was time to rebuild his martial body. He admitted his earlier understanding of the immortal stellar was far too shallow. Back then, he had thought his immortal cell diagram was quite good, but looking at it now, it was riddled with flaws. Determined to rebuild from the ground up, he clenched his fist. Instantly, his body lit up, and with a thunderous sonic burst, he shattered all of his immortal cells in an instant. Blood spilled from his mouth and his body was torn apart. If our boy were anyone else, he would have died on the spot, but within moments, his entire body began its wild reconstruction. Muscles and tendons reformed, then bones reshaped, emitting golden light that pulsed from within as though his body had been forged from pure gold. Once complete, he declared that this new form would be called the Supreme Bone. He even entertained the idea of naming it something over the top, like the Cosmic Stellar Supreme Body, unrivaled across the heavens, and quickly admitted that sounded quite cringe. And if he ever said it aloud, he can't imagine how embarrassing that would be. Suddenly, he felt his immortal cells were multiplying rapidly and devouring the energy within him. With a snap of his fingers, a massive energy crystal landed in front of him. This was the earlier 500 kilograms our boy snatched from the competition. He had thought it would last a while, but likely he's going to use it all this time. Placing a hand on it, the massive energy surge was instantly sucked into his body. In mere seconds, his immortal cell count skyrocketed to 3,600. But more importantly, these cells had now constructed a brand new diagram inside him, which he noted looked like a blazing sun that amplified his strength by at least 1,000 times. The energy was overwhelming, and in just a few seconds, the crystal was gone. Lu Sheng took a deep breath. He knew this was only the beginning. Once all his cells evolved into immortal cells, he'd begin nurturing them into actual stars and eventually birth golden crows within, combined with the divine crystal domain. The potential was staggering, but he had to suppress the excitement bubbling in his chest. He hadn't forgotten about his mutated cell either, and he wasn't planning to abandon that path just yet, and believed it might just be his way into understanding the negative energy of the universe and possibly the key to shattering this stalemate in the future. Next on the list was forging his martial avatar and embodiment. Even though he now possessed level 15 and even level 16 martial paths, He still had to start from level 9 step by step. He decided to use himself as the blueprint, remarking that if mortals seek gods, then martial artists should seek themselves. With determination, he chose to build his martial avatar based on the crystal martial path as the foundation, the stellar martial path as its eyes, and his teacher's nature martial path as the robe. After finalizing the design, he declared he wanted a body of the crystal, eyes of a golden crow, robe of 4 symbols, veil of all martial path, and in that instant, an immense surge of power exploded outward. As he opened his eyes, a faint smile appeared. After much deliberation, he voiced the name he had chosen, which is way too complicated and impossible to translate, so let's just move on. Right after the energy shot skywards, shaking the entire ocean above. But while this breakthrough unfolded, chaos on the surface only escalated. AG had already arrived in our boy's country and was leaving destruction in his wake. Cities crumbled, people screamed, and explosions echoed everywhere, but AG seemed to take great pleasure in the carnage. Lin Zhengyue stood with clenched fists and remarked bitterly that this was already the 3rd city he'd destroyed. If this went on, the whole country would soon lie in ruins. Tan Zhongyu added that AG was likely doing this on purpose just to taunt them and lure them out. However, he believed they couldn't keep hiding and reasoned that as martial saints people regarded them as gods among mortals, thus they had a duty to protect the people. Though Tan didn't believe he stood a real chance, he drew his weapon without hesitation and declared that even if all he could do was stall AG for a moment, he would give everything. Another martial saint asked if anyone got an update on Lu Sheng. Tan Zhongyue gave his weapon a quick flourish, then laughed loudly as he declared that they could keep waiting for Lu Sheng, but he himself was done waiting. He announced with conviction that he too could rise to face powerful enemies, just like Lu Sheng once did, even if it meant dying 10 times over. Lin Zhengyue instinctively called out to stop him, but it was too late. She quickly sent out a few messages on her phone, then turned to the others and said she and Tan were both their nation's guardian martial saints, meaning she had no choice but to do the same. She added that she had already notified Snowy and hoped she could hurry Lu Sheng. Then she turned to the martial saints gathered and said they were free to choose, but she hoped they understood what was at stake, and added that their fates are closely tied. With that, she too dashed into the fray. The other martial saints exchanged looks, then one by one clenched their fists. Harold remarked that this was no longer just about national interests, and this was about Earth. Without another word, he joined the charge even as the weakest among them. Though fear gripped them, several more shouted, "For Earth!" and rushed in. And soon, more and more saints followed. Among the fleeing crowds, someone cried out saying, "The martial saints are here!" And immediately panic turned into awe and hope sparked. But AG smirked coldly, then mocked their courage, calling them brave little native fighters and saying how cute it was. His tone then turned vicious and declared this is the exact reason why he has to kill them all. With a swift motion, he slammed his hand down on their heads. Cut to the ocean once again, where a small fishing boat rocked violently under the pounding waves. A family of 3 clung to the satellite TV. The boy, teeth clenched and fists tight, watched helplessly as the martial saints fell in droves. His father voiced the hopeless thought aloud, saying if the world's strongest couldn't stop the monster, who else could? Suddenly, the boy grabbed a pitchfork and ran to the deck. No idea why he would have that on the boat instead of a harpoon. But anyway, his father chased after him, yelling that even martial saints were powerless. What could a little brat like he do? But then, the boy shouted for him to turn around. Across the vast ocean, a colossal tornado was forming. The father fell to his knees, stunned, and cried out loud that the Sea Dragon King was angry, frantically pulling his son down with him. But the boy squinted through the storm and said, "There's someone inside." The father didn't believe him until he looked closer. They both saw a person walking out of the heart of the storm. The man wiped the sweat from his brow, eyes wide in disbelief, and murmured, "Is that a god?"